So welcome to the Fix It Fair. Without further ado, thank you for joining us. We are joined this evening with Kat and Kira, who will be giving us a presentation on watersheds. And I will pass it over to you.
Hey everyone, I am going to, my name is Kira. I'm an outreach coordinator with the Bureau of Environmental Services. I'm going to share my screen, so hang in there in case it doesn't go well, and then we'll do more full introductions. You never know how this turns out. All right, share. Let's see here. Slideshow from the beginning. All right, made it through. Kat, do you want to introduce yourself? I kind of jumped in.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Kat. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the Stormwater Outreach Coordinator. I am a Confluence AmeriCorps member, and I'm serving at City of Portland Bureau of Environmental Services. What I do is I educate Portlanders about green infrastructure and encourage their participation in the Green Street Stewards program, which we will talk about today.
And as I've mentioned, I'm Kira. I also work at the Bureau of Environmental Services. My work is tied to some of our construction and capital projects, which kind of dovetails really nicely with Kat's work with the Green Street Stewards. A lot of my work is connecting with Portlanders about the construction projects and the work that's being done with their neighborhoods. And then another part is talking to folks about opportunities to do stormwater projects in their neighborhoods led by Portlanders. And I will talk a little bit about the grant and funding opportunities tied to that work today. All right. So before we get started, just in case folks are new to Zoom, and I think this also works on this specific platform we're using today, but there is a chat or Q&A button at the bottom of your screen if you hover. That should allow you to ask us any questions, make any comments, or raise your hand. I know our moderator, Harmony, today said that she will be monitoring those questions for us, which is great, but don't be shy. Let's see, so just a slight overview of our presentation today. We're going to talk a little bit about just our work at the Bureau and some of the challenges to our work and things that kind of motivate us to get out into the community. Some of the green solutions that is tied specifically to Kat and I's work, and then different ways that folks can get involved in watershed health and environmental services programs. All right. So we are the Stormwater and Sewer Bureau. The mission of the Environmental Services is we manage the Portland's wastewater and stormwater infrastructure to promote public health and the environment. One way to think about our work is that we manage all the water that leaves the city in one way or another. And a lot of that has to do with how the watersheds that are within our city boundaries and working to keep those rivers clean and healthy for people, plants, and animals. So some of the unique challenges of living and working in Portland, as many of us, all of us probably know, we have a lot of rain in Portland, and not only do we have a lot of rain, but we have a lot of rain that falls within the same few months, which means that our stormwater systems have to have the capacity to manage peak highs in, February, those gloomy February months, and then those, lows that are in July and August. We have a lot of impervious surface. 43% of the city is impervious. That is places where water cannot percolate into the ground. So instead it slides over the asphalt. Roofs impede the ability of water to get into ground. If you ever had your basement overflow, that's water looking for ways to percolate, and creates challenges to our work, and also is one of the things that we hope to address through doing infrastructure projects. And we also have aging sewer systems. I'll tell you, depending on what part of the city you live in, go back, oh, so go back later. So we have two primary sewer systems. I actually think they're in far East Portland. They have a somewhat different system sometimes. But the MS4 system, some folks have separate systems where your sewage is being taken through one set of pipes into the Columbia wastewater treatment plant or one of the other treatment plants. And then there was stormwater, goes into the drain and is put into the rivers, which is a good solution, except for we have to be mindful of that water that's going right into our pipes and going into the rivers, and making sure that it's not picking up a bunch of sediment and other things, or pollutants and other things on its way down. The other type of system, which folks might be familiar with because it's something that we talk a lot about at Environmental Service, which is our combined sewer system. If you live in inner Southeast Portland, it's likely that you have a combined system, which means your sewage and stormwater are going into the same pipes and going to the treatment plant. We, in high rain events, we do have overflows that empty into the Willamette River. Through construction projects that was completed in 2011, we've been able to reduce those combined sewer overflows by, I think it's around 95%. This is a huge driver in our work, is eliminating sewage overflows into the Willamette River. It's a very high priority for the Bureau. I think the last one we've only had one this year, and it was January, I believe. And all of these things that motivate our work are also like a large part of the program that Kat runs, and also the grant program that I manage. We're looking for ways that folks can help reduce impervious service and help address these issues within their neighborhoods. And Kat, do you want to take over?
Yeah, absolutely. So as Kira said, we have a lot of problems and we have a lot of stormwater. So the city of Portland has to experiment with different ways to help manage all this stormwater. So Portland has started building a lot of different green infrastructure and green solutions to help manage all of this. So we have started building a lot more rain gardens, which is the photo on the bottom right. We've also been planting more trees. It's the photo on the bottom left. And then we've also started making a lot more green walls and eco roofs as well. Lastly, we've also started building a lot more green streets in our city. So a green street is kind of a vegetated space that captures the stormwater runoff from the streets and allows it to soak into the ground as soil and plants filter the pollutants. Can you hit the next slide?
Yeah.
So we have a lot of green streets in Portland, in our city, and they come in all like shapes and sizes, and they can be really big or really small. But one of the green streets that we have is kind of like a curb extension from the curb onto the street. A great example of it is the photo on the bottom left. So this green street extends out into the curb, and it kind of transforms the curb lane into a really nice landscaped area. This type of green street also conveniently integrates a ramp for safe pedestrian crossing as well. Another type of green street that we have is like a street planter, and a great example of that is the photo on the bottom right. So the street planter is located between the sidewalk and the curb, and it works well in areas with kind of like limited spaces. And what's really cool about this green street is that it allows for adjacent street parking and like pedestrian travel and car travel as well. And then lastly, we have rain gardens. When there's a lot of space, the rain gardens are most ideal. They are really awesome at transforming like awkward street intersections and making it into a safe pedestrian and bicycle crossing. And the photo on the top left is a really great example of that. That street's just really weird, and I think a rain garden fits perfectly there. Can you hit the next slide? Perfect. So I have a little map of all the green streets in Portland. The examples I showed was just a few. We actually have about 2,200 green streets in our city, and they are located all over the city. So the map, all the little green dots you see are just green streets. All right, can you hit the next slide? So we have so many green streets in our city. Like, what are the benefits? What do they do? They provide a lot of public infrastructure benefits. They provide a lot of environmental benefits and community benefits as well. One of the most important things that the Green Street does is it helps reduces the combined sewer overflow events that Kira talked about earlier. It happens when Portland gets a lot of heavy or prolonged rainfall, and then our combined sewers can overflow into the Willamette River. The Green Street also provides basement sewer backup relief. It also recharges the groundwater. All the stormwater runoff is absorbed in the soil in the Green Street, and that recharges the groundwater. It also increases tree canopy, and it cleans and cools our urban air. Because the Green Street also filters out all the debris and the trash, it also helps improve our water quality in our streams. Last but definitely not least, they provide a lot of pedestrian and bike safety, and they really beautify our neighborhoods. It's really great to have an urban green space right in our neighborhood. So I've been talking a lot about green streets. I'm sure you're wondering, what is a great way to get involved? A great opportunity for you to get involved with the Bureau of Environmental Services and help take care of our green streets is to become a Green Street Steward. As a steward, you can help restore river and watershed health by caring for a green street that's near you. So what is the program? The Green Street Steward Program is a volunteer program that allows Portland residents, businesses, and organizations to participate in the care and maintenance of our city's Green Street. Participating in this program is a really rewarding way to contribute to the community and help keep Portland's rivers clean. I think this volunteer program is a really great COVID activity. You are able to stay near your home and stay within your COVID bubble, but also contribute to the community as well. So I have a few facts about the Green Street Steward Program. As of right now, out of the approximately 2,200 green streets, about 557 of them are adopted by 227 Green Street resident volunteers. These people live in Portland and they adopted a green street near their home. We also partner with a lot of businesses and organizations, and we are currently partnering with about 60 volunteer businesses. So some resources. I see someone has their hand raised. Andreen, did you want to mute yourself?
Hi, Andreen.
Okay.
Oh, we can see you. Well, we can see a picture of you. It's good enough.
All right, perfect. I also have some resources that I wanted to point out. These resources are available on our website. So we have a maintenance guide, which talks about the responsibilities of being a Green Street Steward and how to help make sure that the streets are functioning properly. We also have a weed ID guide, which I think is one of the coolest resources we have. It shows weeds in different stages of their life, and it tells you how to best remove them. We also have a suggested plant guide in case you wanted to add more plants to your street. And then lastly, we have an activity log for you to record all your hours and the amount of trash you collected and the amount of debris you collected. So I guess you're wondering, what do you do as a Green Street steward? So as volunteer, the stewards are helping ensure that the streets are functioning properly by performing really simple activities. So as a steward, you would clear the curb openings and drains of trash and debris so the stormwater runoff can flow into the facility and it can flow out. You would also be removing trash as well. Some more things that you would do is you are also removing sediment. Sediment is like a fine sand-like material that's collected in stormwater, and then it's deposited in the curb openings. The photo on the left-hand side is a photo of sediment. And then also, if you are feeling confident, you can also pull weeds. This is where the weed ID guide really comes in handy. It helps you identify if what you are seeing is a weed or if it is a plant that is supposed to be there. I guess another question that you might have is how much of a time commitment does it take to be a steward? So as a steward, you can spend as much time as you want caring for your green street. Just a really important thing to keep in mind is that it's really great if you can check on your street before, during, or after a storm event when like because heavy rainfall can cause trash and debris to collect around the curb openings and drains, and that prevents the stormwater from entering the green street and it prevents it from functioning properly. So if you have a few minutes to spare, you can really help ensure that the green streets are functioning properly when they are most needed. Next slide. So the second to last thing I wanted to talk to you about is all the volunteer businesses and organizations the program partners with. We partner with a lot of nonprofits and businesses in the Portland area, and we partner with them to do a lot of different things. We do watershed education and stormwater management education with tourists and people, places, and things, and VOs. We also do a lot of partner and do a lot of cleanup events with Solve and Surf Rider. And we also plant a lot of trees and work on our watershed with the Johnson Creek Watershed Council and Parks and Rec. Yeah. So I guess the last question you're wondering is, Kat, you've convinced me. How do I sign up? It's pretty easy. All you have to do is visit our website to start registering. Our website is www.portlandoregon.gov/BES/Green Street Steward. I will put the link to our website in the chat so you can access it a lot easier. But from our website, all you have to do is scroll down the web page and there will be a button that allows you to register. And from there, you can see a map of all the green streets that are near you that you can adopt. I really think that becoming a Green Street Steward is a really rewarding way for Portland residents and businesses to care for their community and help keep our rivers clean. I also think it's a great opportunity to partner with the city, and with different businesses and residents and community organizations as well. So that is a little bit about the Green Street Steward program. Harmony, do we have any questions that I could answer at the moment?
We do. We have a couple. One of them is, how do we get a weed ID guide? Is there a place to go to order one of those or find it online?
Yeah, our weed ID guide is actually on our website. That's on the screen right now. And from there, there's all the resources are on our website.
Awesome, thank you. And then what if somebody wants a green street, like not just to be a steward, but they're like, I want my street to be a green street. Is there a way to kind of like advocate to get that brought to your community?
That is a great question. Kira, do you have an answer?
We love this question. In one, because we like when people like our green streets. I think the answer that, which might not be the answer that people want to hear, but sorry, is that our green streets are design facilities that are placed by our engineers doing like a bunch of modeling for finding out where water needs to be like lifted off the system in accordance to the CSOs, the combined sewer, where our combined sewer overflows are being caused, you know, like where the source of that water is. I think if you're a person who is very interested in green streets, or another, sometimes like a rain garden also might be something that folks who like green streets might be interested in. Rain gardens, which is, a rain garden is much more of a like accessible. It's not like a specific design facilities that have a bunch of engineers and models that go, engineers and modelers that need to design. Anyone can really design and put in a rain garden, and we can talk. I'll go over that a little bit in my part of the presentation. Sorry, I wish I had more. I wish we could put them everywhere.
That's all the questions we have for now, ladies, but I'll chime in if we get some more.
All right, thank you.
All righty. Oh, I lost my, there we go. I'm going to talk a little bit about some community projects. So I work often directly with communities to support projects that address our watershed health goals. A lot of them also provide educational opportunities and improve livability within neighborhoods by adding pollinator habitat, places to rest and relax, and also just beautification. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about examples of projects that people have done in the past, hopefully to give people an idea. I found that sometimes applying for grants or starting projects can be a really intimidating process. So I'm hoping folks can maybe hold on to a little bit of these examples, or also feel free to come to me with any questions. All right. So an example of a really lovely project that was led by the Columbia Slough Watershed Council this year. Actually, I apologize. It was last year and this year. So it was a two-part project. Folks from the Columbia Slough Watershed Council applied for a grant from Environmental Services with the goal of installing a habitat corridor on the medians on Ainsworth Street. I don't know if folks have ever been to Ainsworth Street, but they have these very wide, and I'll show you a picture in a few minutes, but they have these very wide medians that have, I believe, maples planted along them. And so they plant, their goal was to create a habitat corridor between Fernhill Park and Alberta Park, which is located off of Ainsworth. So in 2020, last year, when they started the project, folks, they were able to plant 1,200 native plants and converting 9,600 square feet of turf grass into natural landscape. One thing that stood out about this project was the number of partners that were involved in the work. And partnerships are really important and valuable to doing environmental and stewardship work. So in a few examples of the partnership work, Portland Audubon Society from the Backyard Habitat Certification Program facilitated the public event and they conducted outreach. River City Environmental provided in-kind irrigation for July and August. Alliance High School students helped canvass the neighborhood before the planting to raise awareness about the project. and the public event. So they had a public volunteer planting. PBOT helped create a traffic safety plan. Wisdom of the Elders provided technical support. Eric Rosewall, who works at Portland Parks Recreation, provided technical expertise. And Scott Sutton, who is a landscape architect, provided in-kind irrigation design that were used in the planting. And so this is from last year's project. This is the before and after photo. So on the left, you can see that there's kind of a very like classic grassy right-of-way with trees, but not a lot of places for habitat for pollinators in particular to find refuge or food. And then afterwards, on the right, they have some, I think it looks like some fringe cup implants put in there so that animals can travel along that median between habitat zones. And an example of another project that was done also, this one started in 2019. BES partnered with Park Rose Historic Park Rose, I'm sorry, to offer local businesses free native plants and free native landscaping for their buildings' frontages and for medians adjacent to their buildings. Verde contractors did remove the hedgerows that were pre-existing in those spaces, and then volunteers at both locations planted plants. So I think on the left, the local 10 painters and drywall finishers union, 10 volunteers planted 100 native plants in that location. And on the right, we had Heritage Specialty Foods, where we had 7 volunteers who replaced the sod with 100 pollinator-friendly native plants. So I wanted to also add, before I move into my presentation, that these are the project areas. So both of those projects were done in our My Columbia Corridor project area, but these are the locations that I primarily work with in the city, although we do have grants and funding opportunities that are citywide. So if folks, these are the areas that I am like specialize, I don't know what to say, specialize in, but if you are interested in doing a project throughout the city, you should feel free to contact me. All right, so I was hoping that those examples would kind of give some concrete ideas of like what folks are doing within the city. And if you have an idea for a project, though, we typically have 3 ways for folks to pursue funding or for resources for that project. The first, I don't have a space between my 2000 and my 2, sorry, typo. Our Never to the River grants award up to $20,000 to support organizations and community groups doing collaborative watershed projects. Those would be kind of somewhat similar to the Ainsworth habitat medians. So those are projects that typically have like a lot of partnerships, some educational and other components to them. We also have our native plant certificates, which are redeemable at Bosque Del Natives. It's a nursery in Westland. It's really lovely. And we offer up to $100 in native plants for individuals and $500 for organizations. And those are most appropriate for projects like the ones done at the Painters Union or the Heritage Specialty Foods, where it was like volunteers installing plants, a little bit more of like a straightforward project. And then finally, for areas, locations that might need some more technical expertise that we can provide in-house. These are a little bit more rare, but occasionally when someone wants a rain garden that might need some excavation or some design, sometimes we work directly with those folks to purchase supplies and manage the contractor ourselves, just because it's somewhat easier to do that work in-house. And I think I've given some ideas of projects, but some things that we typically people tend to use our grant funds for are depaving, mulch, education and art projects, in addition to like plants. We've also had folks use funds for stipends and professional services, particularly for like youth who are doing job training or anything like that. And I think that is everything that I have. If folks have questions, they can, oh wait, folks have questions, you can pop them in the chat. Thank you so much for coming. I also have Kat and I's, both of our contact information is up on the screen.
All right, we do have a couple questions here. So the first one is, my neighborhood partnered with BES on developing a green space 2 years ago. Would we be eligible for phase 2 support?
Yeah, I think I can't speak to like specific. I mean, certainly eligible to apply. Yeah, I think that's okay. I think certainly eligible to apply. Our grant application is open, and we've had folks who have applied similar to the Columbia Slough Watershed Council. They applied for 2 years in a row to expand their project. And we do appreciate having like longstanding partnerships with community members, and we found that that's very important to us and for them.
Thank you. And we have another one. Can the funds be used for staff time, and is there a breakdown of how the funds must be spent?
Yes, there's a we have some percentages. So our program is somewhat new, so we're in the process of some refining and getting feedback from our grantees. And this is some of the feedback that we've gotten from our grantees. We've increased our the percent of the grant that can be used for professional services to 50%. And I believe that includes like staff services. And if you want to email me, I can send much more specific breakdown as well.
Right, it looks like anything to say about Boise Elliott Native Grove? Do you have some some words of wisdom or cool things about that?
You know, it's hi Andreen. I almost presented about the Boise Elliott Native Grove because it's one of my favorite projects. I think a word of wisdom would be if folks have the opportunity to visit or look up the Boise Elliott Native Grove. It's a really lovely example of a project. It's one of my favorites. They have fish sculptures and really lovely like habitat that demonstrates the diversity of the Willamette Valley in a really unique way.
I have another question in here. We have land that we have interest in turning into a healing garden. How can the watershed accommodate us in this? So is there a way that the two can be merged, I think?
Yes, one of the goals I was thinking about during this presentation, and I hope that it's been helpful to people, is that our watershed goals are really compatible with a lot of like community goals, and I think one of them is certainly like creating spaces using green infrastructure, trees and plants for spaces that can also serve other purposes like respite. I think that our community goals are certainly to create spaces that come from and serve the community. And they also provide the benefits of holistic watershed health.
Perfect. Well, I think that is all the questions that we have for now. I want to thank you both for joining us. Oh, just kidding. We might have a little more. Are there any project guidelines that can help us achieve our goals? So any guidelines that you may have, and then we have another couple questions after that.
I think Yes, I think that's a really good question. Some things that come up, we certainly have guidelines. It's a grant process, so it is also competitive. We have a review committee that goes through and tries to measure up, you know, the community that's applying these goals with our goals is a bureau. And one of the reasons I wanted to use examples was to kind of give like concrete ideas of what our goals, how our goals have overlapped with communities' goals. And I think one thing that does come up though is we really have an emphasis on like community accessibility. So spaces, one of our guidelines is certainly to have like a space that's visible and accessible to the community, to the public. And I think other than that, I'm bringing that one up because sometimes it's like, it's something that comes up a lot in our grant application process where we really want to do a project with someone and then we have this like issue that we gets in the way. And I think other than that though, we're really looking at things that center affected communities in the neighborhood and also include some aspects of watershed health, whether that's native plants or even artistic projects that demonstrate some connection to the watershed, the environment, or education.
Thank you, Kira. And then the next one is, how do we get city support for rain gardens in front yards? I've seen them all around the city and we would love to have one and get the city sanctioned sign as well.
It depends on the specific rain garden. Occasionally we do have a program called the Private Property Retrofit Program, which is somewhat new. And that is part of they're under my umbrella, although I don't work directly in that program. And those rain gardens are typically located very similar to our green streets, and that they are located in a place where the city really needs to get water off the system and doesn't have any space within our public right-of-way to build a green street. And so we partner with the landowner and to ask them if we can install a rain garden in order to manage some of that water because we don't have any other space to do so. I would say that if you are interested in a rain garden, we do have our native plant certificates, and those would be good for plants that could certainly be used in a rain garden. I also have rain garden guides. They're the ones that we put, that the city puts in people's yards, they're often like highly engineered for specific amounts of water to come off the system, but their rain gardens are quite simple to like design and make. And I would be happy to provide like any, I would be happy to provide a native plant certificate and any guidance that I can on that.
Thank you. We are getting some appreciation in the chat for the presentation. So thank you so much for being here with us.